2026 is very likely going to be the year that we have disclosure about extraterrestrials and aliens. And in this video, I'm going to be sharing with you the alien psyop, the 13,000-year-old deception having to do with extraterrestrials, aliens, and we're also going to expose the real truth about Annunakis. They are not what you have been told. In fact, that is one of the biggest psyops that has been unleashed on you, is what you have been told about Annunakis. So I'm going to remind you of the 4 things that the elites do to you to keep you trapped and enslaved. We're going to talk about the things that we just discussed, and we're going to look at 3 main lies about extraterrestrials. And the biggest one is the 13,000-year-old psyop having to do with Anunnakis and the elites. So stay tuned for this. Once again, if you're not familiar with me, welcome to my channel. I hope you enjoy the information here. And just know that I am not a prophet. I am not here to regurgitate things that I've read in books or heard from other podcasters. I am not here to convince you of anything. In fact, you should not believe anything that I say without having proved it through your own experience. The good news is I can teach you exactly how to do that. Everything that I share on this channel is my own personal experience, and none of it is anything that I had any idea existed. I didn't believe in most of it. If you had talked to me before June of 2022, I would have told you that everything I'm about to tell you is a bunch of nonsense. So I'm not here because I'm trying to fit in with the New Age crowd. I'm not trying to do anything. I am simply telling you the truth as I've experienced it. You're free to believe it or not believe it, but I'm here to tell you from my experience, the best way to know if something is true is if you can personally prove it through your experience. Again, I'm going to tell you how to do that. We're in fact later today, and this is now Saturday the 10th, it's in the afternoon, we are going to be doing live guided interdimensional meditation. We do them every Wednesday and Saturday evenings. So hit the notification bell on the channel so you can be notified. And right now I'm thinking they're going to be around 7:30 p.m. Pacific time, but if you can't make it, don't worry, because it automatically gets archived. So just go to the live section on this YouTube channel to experience these meditations. That's how you prove whether or not what I'm talking about is real. All right, so let's get into it. Talk about the alien psyop. Before we do that, again, what are the 4 things that the elites do to keep you trapped and enslaved? First thing that they do is they get you enraged. You become self-righteously angry and you pick a side. I don't care which side it is. If you're self-righteously angry about it, you've already fallen for the first trap. They make you angry. The second one is they confuse you. So one day they'll tell you, the mainstream media will tell you one thing, and then the next week they tell you something else. One week they'll tell you they hate Donald Trump, and then the next week they'll be completely agreeing with him. That's going to cause you confusion. You're not going to know who to trust. They're going to play both sides against the middle. So they get you angry, then they get you confused. Then the third thing that they do is they frighten you. And you become afraid to pick a side, because you watch people getting put in prison, getting harassed by the cops, getting canceled. And so that makes you frightened, and that brings you to number 4, which is it immobilizes you so that you can't do anything. So they enrage you, they confuse you, they frighten you, they immobilize you. And all of the psyops that I'm revealing to you having to do with what is going to be the single most important subject in modern human history, which is the alien extraterrestrial Earth connection. That is the biggest, most important thing, and that is being exposed. It's going to blow open wide here very soon. You're going to find out that you have been lied to for the longest time. So we're just going to go ahead and get into it. What are the three main lies? The first one is the MyLab's alien abduction hoax. So you can see by the gray hairs on my chin, I've been on this planet for a while, and I remember when aliens became a thing. So somebody once brought to my attention just recently on the channel, because of something that I had said about the Betty and Barney Hill abduction case, and that was the first abduction case that had been recorded. It's very interesting that it happens in 1962. We don't have any recorded abduction cases that happened before that. There are things about that abduction case that are very interesting. First off, let me say something before I get misunderstood. Abductions do happen. They are real things. Abductions are when human beings, usually at night in their home, but it doesn't have to be. Sometimes they're out camping, sometimes they're driving in a car. What happens is that an alien craft, or what appears to be an alien craft, appears, and the people become paralyzed. They can't move. And then beings will show up, usually beings that look like the Greys. Sometimes they look like mantises or other beings. And these beings will then take these people by force, because they immobilize them. They also put them in a stupor so that they're not completely conscious. They don't know exactly what's going on. And they are physically taken onto a ship most of the time, where all kinds of things can happen. Sometimes they have experiences where they're supposedly taught how to be psychic. Other times they will be experimented on. Sometimes there will be sex abuse. There will be taking of fluids. There's also a hybridization program. These are all real things. The question is, who is doing it? So let me be clear. When I talk about the alien abduction hoax, I'm not saying that abductions don't exist. They do. The question is, who is doing them and for what reason? And when you find out the truth about it, you're going to get closer, because when this comes out, this is going to be the linchpin that's going to blow everything wide open. So the MyLab's alien abduction hoax. All right, so let's get into it. So alien abductions have been spiritualized for decades. People make money. There are people that make money going to UFO conferences, and they speak about abductions. I've communicated with some of these people, and it's amazing how attached they are to this idea, and it's amazing how much they want to spiritualize it. I'm not going to tell you my opinions on who these people are and who they work for. You can tell by that last sentence, you can probably guess what I think about that. But the idea that somehow it's spiritually okay to be forcibly abducted against your will, to be experimented on, and to be used as a donor for hybridization programs. If you think that that's okay as long as they come from another planet, you are being manipulated. That is the typical narcissistic, abusive response. I'm different. You're special. I'm special. If somebody else did this, it would be abuse. But when I do it, it's spiritual. And so people think that being abducted is somehow spiritual. And if it's not okay for another human to forcibly abduct somebody against their will and do these same things, teach them how to be psychic, abuse them sexually, to use them as donors, to use them for breeding programs. If a human did that, you would put that person in jail. You would say they were a psychopathic abuser. So the idea that aliens can do it and get away with it, and that it's somehow okay or spiritual, that tells you this is a psyop. So the reality is that This is part of the 13,000 year hoax. The people who are behind this, and they are people, they are not extraterrestrials, they are humans. These are people that have access to technology far beyond anything that you have been led to believe exists. In fact, if you were to see the technology and somebody were to tell you that comes from outer space, you would believe them because it is so far more advanced than anything that we have. Our cars are the equivalent of horse and buggies. We've been driving the same cars for 100 years. Automobile technology has not changed. We had electric cars 100 years ago. None of this is advanced. So the idea that the people in power don't have access to technology far beyond anything that we know about is childish, and it's inaccurate. So the vehicles that are used, in fact, the majority of UFOs that are seen are made by humans. Very powerful humans that go beyond any government or anything you've seen, and yet have access and control to all of them. So what is really going on is that human beings are using technology, very advanced technology, and they use it. This is how they experiment with technology. They use this technology to fool people they abduct them and fool them into believing that they've been abducted by aliens. And now let's get back to Betty and Barney Hill. Again, it's very interesting that the first recorded abduction is in 1962, the year before I was born. And what happened during that abduction, people only get, if you watch it on, Ancient Aliens or something, they're just going to give you some basic stuff, but they're not going to tell you what really happened. So I encourage you to actually research deep into what happened in that abduction. And you'll find out that it doesn't make any sense, that it's actually comical. It's clownish. It's so bad. It is obvious that whoever was behind this was for the first time trying to figure out how to do this thing. And I'll give you a couple of examples. The first one is they didn't know what dentures were. These aliens who travel millions of miles or millions of from different star systems, faster than the speed of light, through wormholes, billions of miles to get here, and they don't know what a denture is. Here's the real kicker. So in 1962, humans did not have any way of testing for pregnancy. And so when Betty and Barney Hill were abducted, these aliens, these Greys, they show up. They take Betty and they take her into her own private little cell on the spaceship, and they pull out a huge needle. And she gets really scared. What are you going to do with it? And they say, don't worry. We're just checking to see if you're pregnant. And then they said, it's not going to hurt. And they stuck this needle into her belly button. They were doing it to pull out amniotic fluid to see if she was pregnant. It turns out it did hurt. She screamed in pain. And somehow the alien waved his hand and the pain went away. So whatever technology they had to disconnect her from the pain, they hadn't figured it out. They were testing it out. So in 1962, that was one of the things that was used to prove that these aliens were so advanced, that they had the ability to do pregnancy tests by sticking a needle into your amniotic fluid to figure it out. Now, do you need to do that now to get a pregnancy test? No, you can get stuff that you pee in a little thing. It's really simple. So again, you're telling me that beings from millions of light years, thousands, hundreds of light years away, traveling through wormholes that can master time and space, they haven't figured out that you can just take a little bit of a urine sample and figure it out? You're telling me they don't have the technology to scan you and say, oh, they didn't have x-rays to see what's inside? It's obvious they were experimenting, because just a few years later, Magically, doctors start using needles to pull out amniotic fluid to test for pregnancy. And then, of course, real pregnancy tests, the safe ones, the non-invasive ones, came out. So those of you who want to get mad at me and say that Betty and Barney Hill, they were the first abductees, I'm agreeing with you. They were abducted by humans, experimenting. They were the first. And so every single alien abduction, every time a human being is forcibly taken against their will, it is done by humans using very advanced technology, much of the technology reverse engineered from actual extraterrestrial technology that they've pilfered. They shot them down, stole their technology, and reverse engineered it. So that's number one. The MyLab's alien abduction hoax. Because if you've noticed, abductions have become more and more believable over time. And the technology used has become more and more advanced. So the abductions that started happening in the 90s, as opposed to 1962, the technology is off the chart. Does it sound like aliens are figuring it out? Or does it sound more like humans figuring it out? And they've gotten much better. And the UFOs, the fake alien UFOs, have gotten indistinguishable from the real thing, almost. So that's the first one, the MyLab's alien abduction hoax. Number two, one of the second lie about extraterrestrials is that only special people can communicate with ETs, and I'm here to tell you that anyone can communicate with extraterrestrials. Anyone. So let me dispel another lie. I didn't list it, but let me dispel another lie. So if you talk to the UFO community, they're going to tell you that governments have secret connections with extraterrestrial races, and that some governments are working with good ETs and some governments are working with bad ETs. Watch the video I made yesterday. There's no such thing as good or bad extraterrestrials. I won't get into the meat and potatoes of it right now. But anybody who talks like that is either parroting something false that they heard, they're sincere, but they're parroting something they heard, or they're mistaken, or they're lying to you, or some combination of all three. Because extraterrestrials that come to Earth are all of them higher dimensional beings. Now, I'm sure that they can phase down into the third dimension if they chose to. My experience is that they don't, and the main reason is because, two main reasons. The first one is they don't like it. They're in a much higher, beautiful frequency, and to go down is, like going down in the sewer. It's just not a pleasant experience. And the second one is they don't come down into our frequency. Well, one is because it makes them vulnerable. This is how the elites, the real Annunakis, this is how they shoot them down. Because when they come down into 3D, they get shot out. They get shot out of the sky, and then they get captured. They get abused. They get experimented on. So as we speak right now, underneath places like Area 51 and wherever the actual places are, I don't know. There are actual extraterrestrials that are being held captive. They're being experimented on. And I'm not going to get into what the actual experiments are because they're horrific. And they involve humans, and it involves human hybridization. So the way that they can keep doing this is by lying to you and making you believe that it's happening, that extraterrestrials are doing it. They're making you believe that the technology that the ETs have is so far advanced that there's nothing we can do about it. And then they play this psyop where they infiltrate the UFO community and they write books and they talk all this stuff about alien abductions and alien technology. And one of the ways that you know that somebody is lying is if they say, like some of these so-called whistleblowers who talk about UFOs, and they talk about how dangerous these UFOs are. One of the ways you know they're lying is they'll say, and we don't have this kind of technology. When they talk like that, that's a psyop. They want you to believe that humans don't have the ability to do all the things that the ETs are supposedly doing, because then you're not going to blame anybody. And then they play the other side of it, and they make you think that the government has secret information and that there's a secret UFO retrieval program. It's not a retrieval program. Retrieval program means that you're sitting here watching the sky, waiting for some, again, very advanced extraterrestrial pilot who somehow is able to go faster than the speed of light, who can go through wormholes and has knowledge beyond anything you can comprehend. But somehow, he sneezed and let go of the steering wheel and put his foot on the brake and crashed into Earth, or somehow they got hit by lightning and crashed into the Earth. And you're supposed to believe that. And so these humans are waiting around hoping that these ETs are going to crash so that they can go and retrieve them. They're giving you part of the truth. They are retrieving downed UFOs, downed extraterrestrials, but they're also shooting them out of the sky and then going and retrieving them. All right. So anyone can communicate with ETs. Again, anybody who tells you that the only way that you can communicate with ETs is if you're a channel or you're abducted or something like that, that's part of the psyop. So I'm not a fan of channelers. What I mean by that is, to be clear, I quote unquote channel, but that's simply I'm in telepathic connection to an ET, and I'm simply telling you what I hear them saying or what I interpret them as saying. It's exactly the same as if you're on the phone with somebody and you say, well, oh, mom says hi. To tell my brother that mom says hi, I don't channel mom. I don't, oh, hello, dear. Which is what these channelers do, which is preposterously ridiculous. Having connection and communication with an ET, yes, it is bizarre. Yes, it is very weird and strange and unbelievable. And yes, it releases huge amounts of DMT in the brain naturally. And all of that is true. But at the same time, if I was, and I've done this, if I'm sitting here and you're there and I'm getting a message from an ET about somebody, I'll go, oh, and so what they're saying is blah, blah, blah. Did I get that right? Sometimes I get a word I don't understand. I talk in depth about what that is, but you don't need to take my word for it. This is the most important thing. Anybody can communicate with ETs. Anybody. And the way to do it is to do CE5 protocol. You start out with that. Just Google it. The letter C, the letter E, the number 5 protocols. I didn't make it up. I did it in June of 2022 and I found out. And it absolutely destroyed my understanding of reality. And we do the live guided interdimensional meditations. We do these twice a week and we record them. You can have that experience as well. That's what I want for you. I don't want you to come, and I wouldn't do it anyway, but I don't want you coming to me asking me to be the cult. I have no interest in that. In fact, I want more people to have their own experiences so that I can have people I can communicate with who understand. Because when I did it, I couldn't find anybody that had experienced it to the level that I had. And I was all alone. So part of the reason I'm doing these meditations is so that you can have these experiences so that I won't be all alone in this crazy new world that I'm seemingly going into. So that's lie number 2, that only special people or only governments can communicate with ETs. I'm here to tell you that full open contact is here right now. But it's not going to be, an ET landing on the White House lawn saying, "Take me to your leader." Because they're in a higher dimension. But they're constantly wanting to communicate all the time. They will communicate with anybody. Anybody. And once you create a connection with them, you can keep that relationship going with them as deeply as you want. I communicate with them almost on a daily basis. And that's because I've created that electromagnetic connection to them. I'm not going to get into that. You can learn about that on your own. The last one, let's get into the big one. Whoops, sorry. The last one is the Anunnaki elites 13,000-year-old psyops. So, you've been told that the Sumerians wrote about these alien overlord archons who were ancient astronauts who came to Earth before human beings had evolved into modern human beings, and they were looking for gold because they needed to save their world. And while they were here, they took these proto-humans and they hybridized them so that they were smarter, and then enslaved them and used them as slaves. Now, the truth is that your instinct, when you hear that, if your instinct goes crazy that yes, that's true, you're right, it is true. But once again, it's not being done by aliens, it's being done by humans. So there's a few lies to unpack here. First off, all anybody has to do, please, anybody, all you have to do is go research Zecharia Sitchin, last name Sitchin, and find out, even if you go onto Wikipedia, I'm not saying Wikipedia is, a great place, but even if you go on Wikipedia, you'll find out that this guy had no idea what he was doing, that he was deliberately mistranslating mythology. Anunnaki only means the Sky Father and the Earth Mother, the children of the Sky Father and the Earth Mother. It doesn't mean ancient aliens who came to Earth to mine gold and use humans as slaves. However, what kind of a person would want to mine gold and to create empires and to take humans as slaves and make those slave humans think that they were godlike? Who would want that? Humans who are in control. Now, let me tell you a truth. I talked about this yesterday. What's happening is that truth is getting conflated with lies. And this is, again, the psyop. They give you 98% truth and 2% lies, and in those 2% is the real important information that you need. So the truth of the matter is that 13,000 years ago, the Atlanteans existed, and we lived on a planet that was in a higher frequency. We lived in a golden age. We lived in Satya Yuga. We were in 5D. Many of you listening to me lived in that time, and you were there. You just don't remember. And at that time, there were Atlantean humans who were hybrids in the sense, not physically, but spiritually. They had energies that allowed them to go up and down the dimensional scale. And they were giants because when an average human looked at them, they looked like these enormous giants, but that was just a distortion of seeing a higher dimensional being in front of you in the physical realm. That's one of the things that happens. But it also meant they were giants in terms of their power and their knowledge. And they had access to extremely powerful spiritual technology using things like crystals and energy and understanding the alignment of the planets. That's why the pyramids are aligned to to Leo, and why some of the the windows that go into the chamber are aligned with certain stars. And those have been, if you turn it back 13,000 years, it lines up perfectly. They understood. That's why all of the megaliths, that was, after the flood, those that remember were trying to rebuild the old empire, and they were missing, the technology was missing. That's why the really ancient pyramids and things like that, the older they are, the more advanced they are. The younger they are, the less advanced they are. It's because they were losing the knowledge. So those people, those Atlanteans, became corrupted. Now, even the myths talk about this. All of the flood myths talk about this. The flood came as a result of the very advanced people who were once pure and beautiful, and they became corrupted, and they had technology, they had weapons, and the gods said nah, and they brought the flood, which is real easy to do when you live in an ice age. All you got to do is send some comets and have them hit that mile deep ice pack at the North Pole, and that'll flood the entire planet. And that's exactly what happened. So those people, those elites, those who were more than human, we could call them Annunakis. Those are the people that we intuitively respond to when somebody starts talking about Anunnakis who came to Earth and are abusing humans and enslaving them. Now, the reason why the elites want you to believe that is so that you won't look at them. They want you to think it's coming from outside. By the way, that's where the whole Archon, false beings of light belief came from. Again, that was during the Roman times, but it was the same thing. The elites were still in charge, and they wanted you to spiritualize what they were doing to you. That's what was going on. That's the lie. The lie is that it's not coming from something outside of you. They want you to be afraid of extraterrestrials, because if you connect to ETs, you'll remember who you are. And if you create a relationship with them and you ask them to show you who you were, they will. And trust me, when that happens, that will blow your mind wide open. You will have a very hard time accepting how incredibly powerful you are and were. The elites don't want you to know that. They want you to think that you're some ape that evolved and that some alien came and played with your DNA and turned you into a modern human. Because that's their sick fantasy. They want to do that. What do you think transhumanism is? It's the extension of the 13,000-year-old Atlantean Anunnaki plan. So, I'm going to get off my high horse there. Listen, there's a lot more I have to tell you. If you're new to the channel, please look at the playlists. Go to thunderwizard.com if you want to learn powerful energy practices that come directly from higher dimensional beings that give you the power to overcome this dimension and to shift to a higher one. You can go to the membership section and you can work with me directly. There's all kinds of ways that you can become a member and work with me. I won't get into it. You can go look at it yourself. Go to the shop, thunderwizard.com, click on shop. If you're just starting out, get the Summoning the Immortals Qigong. It's very simple, it's very inexpensive, but it will connect you directly to the higher dimensional beings in their realm. Prove me wrong. The way that prove me wrong is to do it and tell me that it doesn't work. Nobody's done that yet. If you want access to the real power, the most advanced spiritual powers available, go here to maushan.thunderwizard.com. Let's see, there's an S right there. Maushan, SHAN.thunderwizard.com. Check those out. Those are very powerful as well. If you want to take your time, they're fairly advanced. If you want to prove to yourself that I'm real, that I'm exactly what I say I am, and these practices are exactly what I say they are, please do. I have no interest in creating a cult. I have no interest in convincing you of anything. What I want to do is give you the ability, the tools, so that you can have the experience. I'd be more than happy just to disconnect, live on a beach somewhere, and surf and not have to make videos or anything like that. I do that because of who I was in Atlantis, and this is part of my karmic job. I have to educate. So I hope that you take advantage of all of the stuff here. If you have questions about anything, put it in the comments. I read all of the comments. If they're respectful and they're intelligent, I will respond to them. And if you want to know what practices you should do or how you can have a session with me, you can have a consult with me, you can have a counseling session with me, you can have a channeling session with me. I also do Vedic astrology and a bunch of other stuff. If you want to know what you should have, put it in the comments. I'll tell you, what I might be able to do for you. Okay, but the least, I hope you'll come to the meditations. That again, we do these twice a week, and at the very least, go and listen to one of the recorded ones. Find out for yourself. Prove me wrong. The way that you prove me wrong is through personal experience, not by quoting me what somebody else said, because my experience is about 97% of everybody out there is either full of crap or is mistaken. The stuff that I've experienced, you know, there's no way I could have known, and nobody's ever said, ever, no spiritual book, no person has ever talked about the stuff I've experienced. Maybe one or two people. All right, that's it, my friends. I'm going to stop babbling. I love you all. Please be very good to yourselves. Thank you so much for watching this video, and I look forward to seeing you all very, very soon.